Hello and welcome. Today we start at another new topic. Now, this is one of the wonderful topics that we are going to look at because we continue with the ancient civilization, centers of civilization. So we looked at the Egyptian civilization, we looked at the Greek civilization, and now we continue with the Aztec Empire. The Aztec Empire. So under this topic, we are going to look at a lot of things. The origins. We're going to look at the factors for the rise of the Aztec Empire. We'll also look at how it was organized, the empire itself, the culture, the religion. We'll look at those things. And we'll also look at the factors for the decline. How did this empire came into the decline state? And mostly we're also going to look at the contributions. What are those contributions that the Aztec Empire has made to this modern world? So let's be together. It's not a very long topic. You can cover it within 2 periods. You sit this time and you break, and when you come again, you can finish this topic in 2 periods. So let's be together. Let's move through together up to the end. So the Aztec Empire, let's begin by looking at the map. So here is the map of the Aztec Empire as it was in 1200, from 1200 to 1521 AD. That was how the Aztec Empire was. So here, everything that you see here in gray, that everything that is in gray here, this is where we see the map of the Aztec Empire. The map of the Aztec Empire. So the whole of this area that we see here, this is the Aztec Empire. So you can see some of the places there. Just as I mentioned last time, we are going to encounter some of the very, very strange names. They are even difficult to pronounce. You will see the way I will be pronouncing them. I will also be failing how to pronounce it. So you have to develop as well your own pronunciation. So it will be very, very interesting to make those pronunciation. You will see how we are going to pronounce some of them. Yes, so this is the map of Aztec. So let's go to the background. What's that background of the Aztec Empire? Now, this one, it was founded by this Chichimek. Chichimek, that's how I pronounce it. You can make your own pronunciation there, but as for me, I take it Chichimek. The Chichimek tribes. These ones, they were from the northern Mexico. So these people, they were just like nomads. They were nomads. They were moving from place to place. Now and again, they were just moving from place to place. So they were the ones, the Chichimek, the ones who formed this kingdom. Now they migrated from the north at a place called Aztlan. Aztlan, that's how I pronounce it. And they migrated in around 1200 AD. So it is found in the valley of Mexico in Central America. So as you can see, if you go back to that map, you see that it is a place that joins North America and South America. So that's why that place is called the Central America, that is in the valley of Mexico. That's where this civilization started. So let us look at the factors for the rise or the growth of the Aztec Empire. So just as we have looked at the Greeks or the Egyptians, also there were a number of factors that contributed to the rise of the Aztec Empire. So the first one is farming. So they were farming, they were growing different crops. So they used irrigation farming, which was called chinampas. They were growing crops like maize, pumpkins, beans, tomatoes, and pepper. So these were some of the crops that those people were growing. And the other factor for the growth was the population. So population growth resulted into the development of the urban centers. So they started to develop some trade centers or urban centers. So with that high population, it resulted into growth of the empire, because there were some centers of trade or centers that were taken as the towns by then, or the cities. So with that growth of population, then it led to the growth of the empire. And also religion. So these people, they had a common religion which bounded them together. So just as we have been mentioning, or we will be mentioning as time goes, that religion, or even up to now, we see to it that it is a unifying factor. Religion is a unifying factor. People can differ in political affiliations. Some people can belong to different parties, but when it comes to church, you find that those who are affiliated to different parties, they also go to the same church. So it is a unifying factor. So it was centered on the cult or the worship of this God. So God, you can pronounce it. Let me give you time to pronounce it. I may fail to pronounce it because I'm not a Mexican. So let's try to pronounce it. I may pronounce it as Huitzli Postli. So you can also develop your pronunciation. But this is how they pronounced their God. So they worshipped this God. Also, common language. Common language led to the growth of the Aztec Empire. Now, so the Aztecs, they were speaking the same language, which was called Nahua, and this one, it acted as a unifying factor. It was a unifying factor, and it enabled people to develop a very, very strong empire. Another factor that led to the rise of the Aztec was the trade. So they were trading, they traded widely with the neighboring communities. So the Aztecs were trading with the neighboring communities. And they were skilled artisans. So you have to take note of that. The Aztecs, they were skilled artisans, traders, and they produced items of wood, also of feathers, textile, gold, silver, and other semi-precious stones. So they were really experts. They were artisans. They were artists. So these products, they were traded for other items from their neighbors. So they were exchanging those things from other neighboring states or neighboring communities. Another factor was the able leadership and the war skills. So the Aztecs, they had able leaders who rallied the people or organized the people in wars of conquest in the neighboring groups. So they were able to organize themselves in the communities and able to attack and defeat their neighboring countries. As such, they had good leadership skills. So they conquered their neighbors for land and other resources, such as the resources as promised by their gods. So their gods, they had that history to say they were promised by their god to say they were he was going to appear to them when they have arrived at a very at the wanted land, a swamp or the marshes somewhere. So they were promised by their God to say one day they were going to occupy a very good land, a swampy area, whereby they are going to settle there. So whenever they see the good land, they were attacking those people and capturing them, because as it was promised by their gods. So the Aztecs leaders were good organizers of war and political leaders. Hence, they were able to control the neighboring communities. So the Aztecs, they had very good leaders. And the rulers destroyed divisions among communities and forged alliances that made them to build strong empires. So what the other thing they were doing was that when they come into a community, maybe they defeat that community, then they could make maybe an alliance with that defeated one and form a more stronger community now for further development or for further attacks on others. So with that, then they were able to expand. Now and again, they were able to expand. Also, the physical conditions of the Mexican Valley. So the area had a system of lakes connected naturally by means of artificial canals. Hence, it encouraged development of transport. So the area in Central America, there are some lakes. There are a number of lakes there that are connected by the canals. As a result, movement in water, it was just easy. As a result, development was also or followed that transport. And the lakes and canals encouraged the area economic and political unification of the area, because they were able to connect to each other without any problems. Hence, they able unified. They were able united, and again for economy they were able to reach the other sides with maybe other products. For example, we have just mentioned of trade to say they were trading in other things. Now for them to reach the traders, they had to move. They had to move. Therefore, with the presence of lakes and canals, they were able to pack their things in the canoes and able to go to the trade centers. So here we are saying that trade assisted them a lot. We are saying that the physical condition, the presence of the lakes, those lakes, they were assisted. They assisted them in unifying them, hence developing their economies. So let's look at religion and culture of the Aztecs. So religion was borrowed from the Maya and the Toltec and the Maya. That's where they borrowed the religion, which means themselves, maybe purely they were not religious people. They just borrowed it from the other communities. Just as we have said that they were making those alliances. As they made those alliances, they were able to adopt the culture of those people whom they made that alliance. And if they adopted a culture, it became the culture of them all. So here, that's why we are saying that they adopted or they borrowed the religion from the Maya as well as the Toltec. So under religion, that's why we find this culture of human sacrifices. So they offered human beings to please their gods and prevent the calamities. So you have to take note of this. The Aztecs, they were making human sacrifices. They were killing people, offering them to their gods. So why were they doing that? The reason we are saying here is that they were doing that to prevent the calamities. So what were those calamities? We talk of drought, floods, earthquakes, and many others, maybe even diseases, to protect them to prevent those calamities. They were offering human sacrifices. So captives that were taken in war were offered as human sacrifices. So they were very clever, these people. When they go out and capture some people, those people whom they captured from far distances, they were bringing them in solely for human sacrifices. They were sacrificing people going out to capture people and sacrifice them. So if you watch a movie, there's a certain movie, Apocalypto. It is entitled Apocalypto. You watch that movie, it is depicting the culture of the Aztecs. You see this one of human sacrifice. So that movie, it is depicting that. Of course, there are a lot of movies, but I know about that one. If you know another movie, you can tell me so that I share to other friends. Okay, so the gods, they fed on human blood and the hearts. So they believed that the gods, they were feeding on the human heart and the blood. So the flesh was eaten for religious purposes. It signified communication with the deity. So on sacrifice, it was not just giving that the killed human being to the whole of it to the gods. Sometimes, occasionally, they could also taste the flesh of the human being. So it was quite pathetic. There, you can imagine there someone eating the flesh of someone, and they were eating it raw. They were eating it raw, not even even roasting what. They were just uh, 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 getting it, cutting it from there, the body, maybe the hand here, then someone eating. So you can imagine that one. They were eating that. So sacrificing a woman or a child symbolized the eternal life. So when they sacrificed a woman or even a child, they felt, oh, now we are now prevented from all the calamities, and now we are going to live for eternity. Very bad. Now the gods. So here, let's move together here, because that's where now we are at the climax of mentioning the names of the Aztecs. So we are going to mention the names of the Aztec gods. So the gods, there were a number of them. So there was this one, Huitzilopochtli. That is how I mention it. And this one was the chief god and also the sun god and god of war. So his pyramid was at Tenochtitlan. Tenochtitlan, that's how I pronounce it. So that was his pyramid. It was found at a place known as Tenochtitlan. And there was also Otomi. Otomi was the fire god, and there was also Otontecutli. This one was the god of underworld, god of underworld. So don't laugh at me when I pronounce it that way, but try again, try to pronounce this one, Ontotecutli. I don't know. Pronounce it Ontotecutli. Ontotecutli, like that. And again, there was also Hookstec. This one was the god of love, god of love. Do you remember the god of love in Egypt or in Greece? Yes. So also in the Aztecs, they also had their god of love who was called Hookstec. And there was also Zyptote. This one was the eighth goddess. And there was also the other one. This one is very difficult. I have failed. Try help me on this one. Assist me. Okay, let me try. Tezcatlipoca. This one was the god of night, god of night. So try to pronounce it the way you can pronounce it. So there was the god of night. So sometimes maybe the trick here, um, it might maybe happen that you are penalized to mention the gods. It's good that you mention that there was the god of fire, god of the underworld, god of love, or goddess of love, goddess of the earth or earth goddess, and god of the night, other than maybe mentioning them. Sometimes even the spellings, you may not be conversant with them because they are unreadable to us because of the language barrier. They are written in their own language. So it's good to mention that There was god of the night, god of love, things like that, if you are asked about the gods. So the other one was Teotihuacan. This one, the god of the morning star, god of the morning star. So the priests, they used 260-day religious calendar. They were using the 260-day religious calendar, which was called Tona Pohwali, meaning count of days. So they were using that to determine the planting, going to war, or harvest time. So they were using the same. They also had the solar calendar, which was called the Zua Pohwali. This one meaning year count. The other one, count of days, and the other one, the year count with the 365 days. So it had 18 months of 20 days. So a year had 18 months. Each month had 20 days plus 5 extra days. So the Aztecs religion was concerned with the death and the end of the world. So death and the end of the world was the major center, was the central point of the Aztec religion. They believed that the world had been destroyed and remade several times, and that the final destruction would only be prevented through human sacrifice. So you can see to it there that they prevented these calamities. One of it was to prevent the end of the world, the final destruction of the world. Therefore, they had to offer the sacrifice, the human sacrifice, to their chief god. Remember, the chief god, who is the Lopochtli. This one was the chief god. So they were offering human sacrifices to this god. Hence, they killed several thousands of people to prevent the final destruction of the world. So in this belief of the supernatural life, they had two impersonal forces. And this one was Teotli, and Teixipta. So these ones were the two forces of the supernatural world. So these forces, they permeated, or they entered, they penetrated the world and the physical presentations. So the other one, that is Teixipta. This one was represented in the idols, statues, and the figures made by the artist. So they made the figures of this god or this god. So it denoted the physical representation of Teotli, Teotl, as well as the human chaotic activity which surrounded the human physical representation. So that was just a representation of their gods. So reconsecration of the pyramids also, it was done there. So it usually involved the human sacrifice when they were dedicating to say this pyramid, we are making it very special, maybe to our leader, to our king. Therefore, on that consecration or dedication of that pyramid, they were also involving the human sacrifice. So you can see to it, we have just started from the beginning, mentioning of human sacrifice, it shows, you have to understand it, that human sacrifice was the center of the day, was the order of the day. Remember, we are saying that why were they doing this? They were doing it to prevent these calamities, diseases, drought, and whatever. So, you know, we don't want disease when every day. So to prevent it every day, they had to offer the human sacrifice almost every day. Each and every day, they had to kill a human being for sacrifice. So, for example, the reconsecration of the Great Pyramid of Tenochtitlan in 1487, the Aztecs, they sacrificed thousands of prisoners over a period of 4 days. In 4 days, they sacrificed, others they say that they sacrificed about 80,000 people in 4 days. 4 days killing 80,000 because they were dedicating, consecrating the Great Pyramid of their leader Tenochtitlan. So on sports, they had the ball game, which was named Trashitli or Olamalitli. Yeah, so it was called Olamalitli or Trashitli. So that was a ball game like we call football like. So this game was played with a ball of solid rubber called the ollie. So they were playing that game called the ollie. And again, it involved players hitting the ball with their hips or knees or elbows. So they were playing that one using their knees, using their hips like that, and elbows. So the ball had to be passed through a stone ring for one to win the game. So this practice of the ball game had religious and mythical as well as the entertainment means. So that ball or that game, it had different purposes, religious, myths, as well as for entertainment. So they were playing that game. And also on military training, because we have said that these people, they were military, they were attacking others, they were defeating others and gaining control of them or uniting with others. So boys, they attend military training at the early age. So each district, which was called Kapuli, had a responsibility to train the young boys. So each had a school to train the young men. So each district had a school for the training of young boys for the military. They also used weapons like wooden clubs, javelin, bows, and arrows and slings. So they were using different weapons like the bows and arrows, the clubs, and many others. And also women participated in non-military duties. So just as it was in Sparta, remember, uh, women or girls, they were not doing the military training, but the physical exercise, they were doing it for them to produce the healthy babies for the next generation. So here again, we see that the women, they were participating in non-military duties, while boys or men, they were participating in military training. So let's look at the social classes of the Aztecs, the social classes of the Aztecs. So the Aztec society was divided into several groups. Number one was the Piputin. So this one was the highest class of the nobles, the well-to-do people. They belonged to the Piputin. And the other one was the Masehautin. This one was the second class, or originally they were the peasants. And this one dedicated to agriculture and food, agriculture or food production. So they included the warriors, the artisans, and the traders who belonged to the second group. And they were also dedicated to arts and the crafts. So they were doing agriculture. The second group was for agriculture and the crafts, that they were doing those things. And the other one was the Hakotin. The Hakotin was another class of the Aztec society. So this one was the lowest rank. It was the rank of the slaves, and they were set free if they were married by their masters or had conceived with them. So these ones, they were the slaves. So only when they were married, they got married to the masters or the originals, that's when they got their freedom. So, or sometimes upon death of the masters and the slaves, they deemed to have rendered good service, they could be set free. So after the death of the master, and if it was known that this slave was good, then they could say, now you are a free person, you belong now to the second group of the society. Another group was the Pochteca. This one was the small class made up of traveling merchants. So these ones, they facilitated commerce and communication across the empire and beyond its borders. So they also served as the spies. So there was a small group of people who were called the Pochteca. Pochteca. These ones, they were the merchants. They were moving now and again in different places, like making the communications say, there is this material there. Then they were readily going there to get the material and bring it to where it was needed. And as they were doing that, they were also acting as spies. They were informants. They were informing to say, all right, something is happening there, or they were trying to find out what is happening at a particular place. And also religion or education. On education, it was mandatory universal education for children up to the age of 14. So children were supposed to attend education up to the age of 14. And the Aztecs, they had two types of schools. This one, the first one was the Teopocari, and the other one was Kameka. So the Teopocari, this one, was practical and military studies. This one was basically for practical and military studies. While the Kameka was the advanced learning in writing, astronomy, statesmanship, theology, and other areas. So for the technical things and military, it was another school. And the other school was for learning how to read and write, how to study maybe the heavenly bodies, politics, theology, and many other aspects. And there were also festivals in the ancient Aztec. So most of the festivals, the songs and poetry were highly regarded. So in festivals, basically poetry as well as songs, they were the things that ordered their festivals. So people presented and competed in poetry contests. That just as it was with Greece, if you can remember, we talked about Greece to say in Greece again, they had that culture of poetry. They were performing in the open theaters. And again, they also had drama presentations, which included players, musicians, and acrobatics or acrobats. So they were doing all those things. And also poems came in different war genres. That is war, religion, creation, and praises, flowers, as well as prose. So when we talk of poems, they were coming in different categories. Category of war, poems of religion, poems of creation, of praises, poems of flowers, that is of love, poems of just explaining things, that is prose. Yeah. And in housing, they were also the builders. They built houses of wood and loam with a roof made of the reed. So they were building those houses. And pyramids, temples, and palaces were made of stone. So they were constructing those things for the leaders that were made of stone. All Kapuri All Kapuri, remember the district Kapuri, had temples annexed to courts for the ceremonial ball games, sacrificial stones, scar racks, and again ritual bathhouse. So all the districts, they had those special places for those activities. And sanctuaries were also built in pyramids. Sanctuaries were built in pyramids. That is, maybe places of worship, they were also built near or in the pyramids. So each pyramid had two sanctuaries, one for the chief god, remember, his Zoroaster, and the other one for Tlaloc, that is the rain god. Tlaloc was the rain god. And on sorcery and magic, there were also sorcerers. Sorcerers are the magicians. They were feared as they were known to be capable of causing sickness and death by burning on an image of the victim. So the sorcerers, magicians, they were greatly respected in the Aztec Empire because they were taken to say your life is in their hands. Those people, they can just burn your shadow and you are gone. And again, uh, sorcerers also provided love potions to women and men. So potions were drank to treat and heal the diseases. So they were giving the love potions or medicine, love medicine to people so that they drink and maybe they are loved and maybe the diseases or different diseases, they are also healed. So sorcerers and magicians were there also to provide their services to people. Magicians, they used their powers to bring misfortunes to people, so they were also using those powers. And they also made poisonous drinks. They also practiced witchcraft through, though it was punishable by death in the empire. So sorcerers were punished by death if they practiced magic or witchcraft, so they were killed. And again, gender roles. Let's look at the gender roles. So work was defined along the gender. So men and women, they were doing different work, or they were performing different roles in the Aztec. So able-bodied men, so those energetic men, they were recruited into military, those powerful people. And men also worked on public lands to build temples, dikes, aqueducts, and roads. The aqueducts, they are like the dams that keep the water. So the dikes, they are the ones that are built maybe to separate land from the water. And again, women mostly, they were performing domestic chores to take care of the children at home. So women, usually they were for the kitchen and the children.